Hello everybody, welcome to today's video. Sorry if I'm a little slow and whatnot, slow starts and all that, but today's video will be about my thoughts on Terminators from both the Chaos Space Marines and the Space Marines from my little bit of experience running them against both Necrons and Tyranids, though I'm not going to be using any specific examples for them in those match cases. Now, Terminators as a whole, they look really cool, especially the Horus Heresy ones. The Tartarus Terminators, Saturnine Terminators, and Cataphractii Terminators all look really cool. Cataphractii, I'd say more than the others, in my opinion. They're also, generally speaking, pretty tough to take down with their 5 toughness, 2 up save with a 4 up invuln, and 3 wounds. That's all pretty solid. Not to mention, even if you have any characters or certain enhancements or abilities attached to them, they are generally pretty tough. However, their movement isn't great as a whole, unless you're deep striking them, and even then, they only have 5 inches of movement. Really, the only way that you're going to be getting them up the board quickly, if you're not deep striking them, is by using like a Land Raider, a Repulsor. I mean, you could use a Drop Pod, but there's that. And then also, as well, they don't seem to have many good targets to go after with their shooting. Their melee is pretty solid. If you have power fists on Terminators, they can go up and clap something that's pretty moderately tough. Toughness 8 to toughness 6, they can have no problem slapping into. When you're looking into toughness 10 or higher, that's when things maybe look a little dubious. Granted, with Loyalist Space Marines, a little less so because of Oath of Moment, but I mean, if your opponent has a lot of Termagants, or low toughness or low wound models, then their Stormbolters and Combi Bolters are really, really solid to take them down. Now, I apologize for that. Now for Space Marines, Loyalist Space Marine Terminators. And some of these points are going to stay more or less the same between Loyalists and Chaos Space Marines, and I'm not going over Death Guard, World Eaters, any other, or Scarab Cult Terminators. I'm not going over other army Terminators. I'm only talking about Loyalist Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines. But Space Marine Terminators they can hold the objective fairly well, and that's mainly due to their 5 toughness, 3 wounds, their 2 up save plus 4 up invuln. And if they get charged into by anything, if they survive that fight, they have power fists. They each make 3 attacks, strength 8. So chances are whatever's charging into them is going to get hit back. Their shooting is kind of middling, and this is even talking about Cyclone missile launchers being equipped onto some of your units. If you're on one guy, if you're running a squad of 5, 2 if you're running a squad of 10. In my experience with their shooting, it's amounted to a whole lot of not much, and this is into Necrons and into Tyranids. And their points cost is a little ridiculous. 170 points for 5 models, and then 340 for 10 models, and that is not throwing in characters. That is not attaching a captain or a librarian in Terminator armor, adding another 80 to 90 points. Now, Chaos Space Marines, generally speaking, similar points to before applied to these guys. They can hold objectives fairly well because they have the same general stat line. They can fight back well enough, but compared to Loyalist Terminators, I'd say they're a little bit less so because of the fact that not all of them can have power fists. Yeah, you can have 3 of them have power fists, and I believe 1 of them have a chain fist, and then the 5th guy has to have either a cursed weapon or paired a cursed weapon. And yeah, you can say, oh well, they can fight back technically better than the Space Marines because of Dark Pact, because you can Dark Pact when in the fight phase, give them sustained hits, and okay, cool, they can throw out more melee attacks. That is true, but I think on the whole, because all of them can't have power fists like how the Loyalists can, that is kind of problematic. I do think that their shooting is overall a little bit better than the Loyalists, and I say that mainly because of Dark Pacts. Dark Pacts does do a lot for them, in my opinion. I think giving their combi bolters or combi weapons sustained hits 1 makes their shooting go further and generally more wiggle room. I also think that with regards to their heavy weapon options, the Reaper autocannon is kind of a must pick. Like, not to say that the heavy flamer is bad, but you only can have one, so why not take the Reaper autocannon? Just try to make their what middling shooting they have a little bit better. And then their points cost, they're more expensive than Loyalist Terminators. They're 10 more points expensive for 5, 20 more points for 10. Problematic. I think that they should at least be like 5 points more expensive. Just bring it down a little bit. Now, for Terminator characters, and I apologize if this is a wall, since this is a wall of text, I do apologize. But Captains and Chaos Lords in Terminator Armor, 95 points. That's not bad. That's not super unreasonable. The -1 CP cost is really useful for using stratagems on them, especially ones like Diabolic Regeneration from Creations of Bile, because you can bring back one Terminator who may have died. Like that's really huge. Chaos Lords by themselves are really tough, right? They have any damage that they take. Now, yeah, if you're taking damage from a 1 damage attacks, that doesn't come into play, but that makes them tough, especially if you have an enhancement that gives them more wounds or gives them a feel no pain of some kind. You're looking at Chaos Lords that can just kind of like be by themselves, not be attached to any units, and just really mess with people, be just a little a nuisance. Captains giving a reroll to charge rolls is also extremely useful. It makes doing a 9-inch charge out of Deep Strike more possible. It's not likely. It's still like less likely to happen because you're still asking for a 9-inch charge, but given the fact being that you can reroll it without needing to use a command point on command reroll is great. Librarian and Terminator Armor, 75 points, not bad. Like, the Librarian, I believe, is 70 points or 65 points. That's, 10 points more expensive. It's fine. Has better shooting, thanks to Smite. Pair Smite with Combi Weapon, or the Stormbolter in this case, that's pretty good. Having another thing to add to shooting for already a middling-ish shooting phase for Terminators, solid. The granting a 4-up feel no pain to psychic attacks is good. I'm not going to say it's not good. However, it is situationally niche because it is very dependent on what kind of army you're fighting. So if you're fighting an army of, let's say, Necrons, and Necrons don't have any psychic attacks as far as I'm aware, okay, cool. That part of the Librarian's abilities, not that useful. But if you're fighting, let's say, Tyranids, and there's a lot of Zone Throps or Neurothrops or what have you, or Neurolictors, then yeah, you're solid. Or if you're fighting Chaos Space Marines or Thousand Suns, then you have a pretty useful ability, more often than not. It makes your Terminators who are already kind of tougher. And then granting Sustain Hits 1 is nice. I forgot to finish off the sentence, but Sustain Hits 1 is nice. And similar to Dark Pacting for Chaos Space Marines, it does add a little bit more, but it doesn't necessarily make their shooting a whole lot better. It just adds more potential volume to the attacks. Chaplain and Terminator Armor is good. Same points cost as Librarian and Terminator Armor. I think if you're wanting to kind of lean more into, I want my Termies to go up and slap something, or this is depending on if you're using standard Terminators or Assault Terminators or even Deathwing Knights, adding the +1 to wound in melee is good. Although I do think it is a little redundant if you're attacking the Oath of Moment target. Although I'm not too certain of this because I haven't had too many interactions like this. I am not aware if the Chaplain's +1 to wound rolls in melee can get added on top of a +1 to wound from Oath of Moment if you're playing Ultramarines. If I'm mistaken in that and it doesn't add up, it's fine, but if it doesn't, then I feel like it's a redundant ability if you're attacking the Oath Moment target, which you kind of want to for the Terminators. But either way, granting a 4-up Feel No Pain to mortal wounds I think is also really, really good. However, that's also kind of situational because it's dependent on, do these Terminators take mortal wounds? Like, are they taking a mortal wound from a explosion of a vehicle? Are they taking mortal wounds from something else? Or like tank shock, right? Good. I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's not bad at all. Just I think it's also niche, but not as niche as the Feel and Pain of Psychic Attacks. Sorcerer and Terminator armor has better shooting thanks to Infernal Gaze, similar to the Librarian with Smite. Reroll and advance and charge rolls is huge for Terminators, I think. It gives them so much more mobility. It allows them to either start on the board and move up. It allows them to be deep striked in, and once again, like the captains, reroll their charge rolls, but they're also not just limited to I have to charge to make movement. I can make advanced moves. All that's really good, pretty solid. Death Hex, I do on paper, how I've read it, it does come off as strong. I've been told it's a strong ability, and it can be very useful. In practice, I've never gotten that much value out of it, either because of just rolling poorly or having completely forgot about Death Hex as an ability. So I can't really speak too much on Death Hex other than just kind of reaffirming what everyone else I've heard say about it. It's strong, and it's said to me as strong, and I've read it as it's being strong, but in practice, it hasn't really come up too much. But with that, guys, that concludes my sort of quick thoughts on Terminators as a whole. I apologize for the wall of text. I also, hi, for those of you who haven't seen my face and camera, I'm going to try doing this for these kind of videos. Feel free to comment down below what your thoughts are on Terminators. Now, this doesn't have to be just Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines. This could include Death Guard, Thousand Suns. If you use Terminators with World Eaters or Emperor's Children, feel free to let me know. And hell, even armies that don't have Terminators, but like they have Terminators, like the Leagues of Votann with their the Einherjar Hearthguard. Like, feel free to give me your thoughts and opinions on Terminators and their equivalents. Let me know, obviously, if you'd like to see more content like this. Feel free to like the video and subscribe. You don't have to if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine, but it is also completely free. But until the next time, guys, see you later. Hope you guys have a wonderful day on the tabletop.